she practically didn't know what to say, so Ryan just sweetly sipped a cup of spit-flavored coffee. The next day was Casey's 30th birthday. Her parents prepared a super boring gift and hoped she would throw a party at home, but Casey couldn't care less. For years, she had few friends. After Casey and Nina dropped out of med school on a whim, she worked at the nearby coffee shop. Mom hoped she'd make friends or find a boyfriend. At least not like now, mysteriously disappearing every night. Mom's friends kept asking about it, leaving Casey awkwardly speechless, but thankfully, Dad was pretty chill. She just wanted her daughter to take things easy, but that pink suitcase from Mom felt more like a hurry up and get married hint. Even the coffee shop owner was not having it. She even threatened to fire Casey so she could meet new people. One thing that had Ryan scratching her head was that last time, Casey gave her a fake phone number. Ryan spent hours writing a funny text, but it went to an oil worker, with unmentionable topics. Seeing her old classmate so sincere and lovely, Casey agreed to a Saturday dinner. They chatted happily at first, with Ryan joking to amuse her. But later, she suddenly lost her appetite, feeling like she'd fallen into a frozen lake. They were enjoying their conversation, but Ryan was puzzled. Casey used to be a top student at med school. She could have been an excellent doctor, but her dropout surprised everyone. Casey didn't elaborate much and just emphasized she wasn't really into becoming a doctor. Seeing Casey didn't want to discuss it, clever Ryan quickly changed the subject. The two quietly watched an indie film and then walked back to Ryan's place together. But then Ryan casually said something, instantly turning the vibe awkward, much to Casey's dismay. Casey thought Ryan was just like every other guy, and all that budding chemistry evaporated, leaving her pondering what to do next at home. Casey kept mulling over things, feeling increasingly discontent. The more she thought about it, the more off it seemed. Then she thought about Ryan, tossing and turning all night. Casey looked at childhood photos with Nina, as if a new plan was brewing. The next day, Casey visited the hospital where Ryan worked, claiming to pick up meds, but deep down, she knew Ryan didn't mean any harm. But the long-forgotten resistance within her nearly drove her to madness yesterday. She openly wanted to continue seeing Ryan, sincerely inviting her for dinner at the coffee shop that evening. The cafe owner noticed Casey's mood shifting and deliberately decided to clock out early. Ryan asked Casey if she stayed in touch with med school classmates, but her answer was a letdown. Casey hadn't contacted any classmates in years, leaving Ryan totally baffled. Especially her good friend Monroe, who was about to marry a bikini model. Hearing that name, Casey's expression froze like she'd seen a ghost. At night, Casey sat silently on her bed, looking at her photos with Nina, a surge of unresolved emotions flooding her chest. They used to be the top brainiacs of mid-school. But Nina faced something far worse than school bullying. It was a total destruction of her character. Due to Omonra's powerful family background, the police and school chose to cover it up. Ultimately, Nina couldn't escape the shadows that haunted her. She prematurely reached the end of her life, and as her childhood best friend, Casey was determined to exact revenge for Nina. That evening, she found Monroe on Alumni Lane and also stumbled upon her old frenemy, Madison, on her message board. The next day, Casey invited Madison to a hotel, where they discussed their past. Facing the past, Madison still refused to see Nina as a victim. She thought it was just a romantic tragedy, with everyone else believing it was all a misunderstanding. Casey expected Madison's attitude, but didn't believe Nina would, then left the hotel with an excuse. She entrusted the drunken Madison to a stranger whom she had hired. After dealing with Madison, Casey's next target was the dean of the mid-school, Walker. She found Walker's daughter's school, using the excuse of a dead phone to get close to her and disguised herself as a boy band's makeup artist. Once Casey gained the girl's trust, she lured her to a secluded office building. She arrived at her old med school, but the dean hadn't a clue who Casey was after all these years. Casey mentioned why she dropped out, saying it was all because of her feelings for Nina, but the dean wore a blank look. However, when Monroe's name came up, the dean looked proud, as he had become quite successful and even spoke at the school. The dean dismissed Casey's story. She thought it was just because Nina was drunk and Amon-Ra had his powerful family behind him, so there wasn't enough evidence against him. Walker still defended Amon-Ra, thinking such accusations could ruin a boy's future. But Case's feeling of dissatisfaction could not be brushed aside. Who would have thought there was such deep meaning hidden behind her backstory? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel.